Welcome, listeners of a Mel Gibson podcast. We are hugging the cactus today with our good friend Sean Malloy. Back for more for this very special Patreon episode. We will be talking Mel Gibson's directorial debut, The Man Without a Face.
Thanks for the invite. This is going to be a fun one. I think this is look, in the end, I think this is just a delightful little movie.
You actually are quite knowledgeable about this movie, so obviously we will enjoy your expertise.
I don't know if it's expertise per se, but yeah, no, this is an interesting one. I mean, there's a lot we can say about it. I guess it is based on a book. Unfortunately, I do not know too much about the book. It's my understanding, I think, that that Mel Gibson and the film took a few creative liberties with it. In the end, probably for the best. But I think what I appreciate about it the most is that it is it's a really fine little character piece. And I think if you really think about this, I think most actors, when they make the transition into directing, they rarely really go right to a big budget spectacle type film. They always do something fairly small that is more character driven. And I think that's exactly what Mel Gibson is doing here. Is he's saying, okay, I want to go into directing, I want to see what this is like, but he's also kind of aware at the time. This is 1994, I think. So he knows at the time, okay, I know my limitations and I'm not ready to jump right into Braveheart just yet. And so what he does is he crafts and puts together this just small little character piece that really focuses on two main characters, that of Justin McLeod, that's the Mel Gibson character, and then the little boy, Charles. In the end, I think the relationship between the two characters is really sweet. I mean, it's just a really good movie. Some of the things that are in it, I don't know if they play as well today in 2023, which I'm assuming maybe we'll chat about. But in the end, I think this film doesn't bite off more than it can chew, and it's I think it's a good little movie.
Yes, it is. I did have trouble finding the budget, because I know what it brought in, but I had a hard time finding out how much it actually cost to make. I don't know. It doesn't look very expensive, so let's assume it didn't cost 36 million, which was the total they actually had worldwide. I think it was 24 million, as they say, domestic or stateside. Yeah, for a directorial debut, not too shabby. And he also self-produced it, because this is actually one of the first Icon productions, which was Mel Gibson's production company.
Yeah, no, I mean, and as a directorial debut, I mean, wow, I think it's so well done. I mean, like I said, the characters in the film are so real. I mean, you know so much. Every one of the characters in this movie is given something to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just the setting, the locale. I mean, this takes place. Is it? It's Maine. Is that right? Or is it? I know it's on the East Coast in the U.S., but I mean, just the
New Harbor, Maine.
New
I
Harbor.
think.
Yeah. And
it's very pretty.
It's so beautiful. I mean, this is an area, unfortunately, I've never visited, but man, it's so pretty, and just the colors in the film really, really pop. And it takes place in the what is it, the early 70s, but it really does
late
a wonderful
60s,
job.
I think. Yeah, late 60s, because it's the Vietnam War's at its peak. They're watching the news, and there's bombings, and of course the kid wants to become a pilot, and he has a tough time growing up, right? He's a brat.
Yeah.
So of course he says to all the intellectuals in the room, yeah, I'm going to be enjoying, dropping napalm on kids and, all kinds of stuff. He's just saying stuff to get a rise out of people. Probably doesn't realize that this is not helping him in his cause to be accepted in a military academy, which is his dream, because that gets him out of the house. He has trouble at home, and his trouble stems from a broken family. His mother remarried multiple times, has kids from multiple marriages, and is still dating. When I was a kid, my mother was dating around that age, so I know how hard that can be and how much of a bitch you can become, especially to new would-be fathers who enter the scene. And that's something you see in this movie. You see the kid not really connecting to the very brilliant man his mother brings into the house, because that's actually a university professor who could have taught him a lot of stuff if he'd been open to it.
Well, I mean, you said a lot there that I agree with. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things about this is, it takes place late 60s, early 70s or whatever. But I think it does a wonderful job transporting you to that era,
Mm-hmm.
while at the same time not hitting you over the head with it. I think a lot of movies nowadays are so nostalgic about the era in which it's taken place that they really like hit you over the head. Hey, this is the 70s, remember?
Yeah, they give you member berries.
There you go. Yeah. This really doesn't do that. And I mean, you said that the one thing that I really love about it is that it's real. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a real, all of these characters in the film are flawed. They do not sugarcoat or candy coat anything. I mean,
Yes, they're people.
You really get something that is real. I mean, yeah, they're people. And you said something else that I can relate to this as well. I mean, I came from a household. My parents are divorced.
Mm-hmm.
So as a young kid, I can certainly relate to, your parents bringing new people into the home and trying to build a family, with
Mm-hmm.
that. The other thing, I think I was telling you about it before we started recording, but this is a film that I've actually used in the classroom before, because I think the themes of coming of age in this film are so relevant. Okay. And I mean, you have the character of Chuck. I mean, he is of course coming of age, but what I would always use it with is with To Kill a Mockingbird, because the character of, I don't know how familiar you are with To Kill a Mockingbird, but
both
the character of Justin McLeod
mm-hmm.
is very, okay. Yeah. The character of Justin McLeod is so similar to Boo Radley. Mm-hmm. So you can draw just awesome parallels between these two neighborhood recluse characters.
Yes, it's kind of it has that classic literate feel. The movie has that kind of like you like you said, To Kill a Mockingbird, maybe a little Catcher in the Rye.
Mm-hmm. It does. It feels, in a lot of ways, it feels like just that kind of great American novel type mm-hmm. movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah. With a lot of quotes, a lot of callbacks to classical works. Of course, they perform Hamlet. Was it Hamlet? No, it's Macbeth. Because, of course, Mel Gibson is it Macbeth or is it The Merchant of Venice? Merchant of Venice. Yes, because Mel Gibson is a Shakespeare buff. I mean, he made a Shakespeare movie to great critical acclaim. Did it in an actual Danish castle. I've been to that castle where they set that movie. It's amazing. And he stepped into a long line of actors who performed plays in that very castle, because the Macbeth castle is in Denmark is renowned for putting on high quality plays. And throughout the decades, that play has always been performed there. And Mel actually made a movie about it, which it's fantastic when you think about it. And it kind of like his Merchant of Venice element is kind of a callback to that, mm-hmm. which is interesting.
Well, I think that's what. Yeah, no, and I think that's what all directors do is mm-hmm. to an extent, is they kind of add their own. I don't even want to call it a passion or not, but I think that's what Mel Gibson is doing. Is he's saying, "Look, this is my film."
It's a little bit of a calling card.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to throw on a little bit of Shakespeare in this one. And the other thing too that I think is just
it also fits the character.
It does. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. It fits the character. But the other thing too that I think is important to note about this movie is, I mean, okay, if you're watching this in 2023, wow, it really is an amazing kind of reminder, mm-hmm. I think, of just some amazing actors. Okay, so like Margaret.
Yes, there are great character actors in this. The cast is fantastic.
Yeah, Margaret Whitten, who unfortunately passed away, mm-hmm. But man, she played the perennial mom in just so many seminal movies throughout the 80s and the 90s. I think a lot of people might remember her most from Major League, but she plays Chuck's mom in this movie. Richard Mazur mm-hmm. shows up as the hairball.
Yeah,
as they call him, as the
flaky
boyfriend.
College professor.
But the one actor who I have to give just major props to is Nick Stahl.
What a great performance.
Oh my God. You know,
Arguably
you watch it and
one of the best children's actor performances ever. It's
you
fantastic.
you watch this, and I honestly think, because I know that when Schwarzenegger was doing Terminator 3,
Hmm.
there was some flack. Like, why are you casting Nick Stahl over Edward Furlong? I honestly think you watch films like this,
Hmm.
okay, you can see that Nick Stahl bring it. Nick Stahl later on, maybe about 8, 9 years later, did another movie called Bully, where he is just
Yes, I've seen it.
absolutely just
Yes.
killing. Oh my God, that one!
Wonderful
It's not
actor.
one I really want to watch. Yeah,
His talent
he's
can't be
just
denied.
amazing. It's unfortunate that he fell into the drug abuse that he did, and that we don't see him as much as we used to. But man,
Mm.
here it's very evident that he is that he brings it, especially
It's
for
very
a
hard to be a sensitive,
Lebanon.
high-strung person in a horrible town like Los Angeles.
Yeah, yeah.
You
So
do run into the wrong people and you do get into the wrong things. And you're
and that's
traumatized by a lot of it and you need drugs to cope. That's basically, I would say, the 80 or 90% experiences of most actors who come to that town to realize their quote unquote dreams, only to realize it's actually a nightmare they ended up in.
and that's unfortunately what happened with Nick Stahl. But I mean, I'm going to keep going back to this as a directorial debut from Mel. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's a solid job as a
I
because
agree.
I think Nick Stahl had done maybe some commercials before that, but this was his first real film acting gig. I mean, he's
Yeah.
awesome.
And he knocks it out
He
of the park. It's a great performance because he doesn't over emote, right?
no,
I mean, this is an introspective kid who acts out. You get outbursts, yes. You get erratic behavior, yes. But he's not crying all the time like a lot of these kid actors are always want to do, right? It's not like you're watching Stand By Me where they're just bawling throughout the movie.
well, I think every one of his outbursts is earned. I mean,
Yes.
you know what I mean? I think anybody who has been a kid,
Mm-hmm.
okay, been through what little Chuck, we will say, is going through,
Yeah, little
can
Chuck feels boxed in. I
he
mean,
does.
he
And
feels stifled, and he knows he's stupid, but he is being stifled. He's being ridiculed. His older sister hates him for reasons, probably
yeah,
because she's miserable and unhappy, etc. So there's a lot of family strife going on between siblings who aren't really related, who are just thrown together. Well, they're nasty to each other, the way those kids are who are unhappy will do. And so here's this child who is looking for a way out. He's looking for an escape. His own friends aren't really of any use to him. And so he somehow gets it into his head that the town boogeyman is going to help him.
hmm
And that's a kind of interesting jump in the movie that he deeply mistrusts the Mel Gibson character McCloud. I mean, he thinks of him as a freak and he thinks of him as a monster, and basically he brings all the superstitions and fear and mistrust and vilification that his surroundings have always showered upon this recluse who lives on this what is it, the kind of cul-de-sac that he has, kind of this it's, I mean, the house is beautiful, it's amazing, but he lives on a cliff. He lives in a remote part of town. The McCloud character, he doesn't go shopping. He waits until after closing time and gets his groceries from an elderly couple who kindly keep the store open for him so he can shop in private so people won't stare. But he purposely stays away from people. And
hmm
so this child is drawn to that, perhaps because he feels similarly marred inside, the way the McCloud character is, well, shunned by society. So is he and his family. So they're kind of drawn together. And it's
yeah,
never
no,
spoken,
yeah.
it's never explained, but it's obvious. And that's one of the subtle things in this movie that is so extremely well done.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I think for a film like this, the chemistry between the teacher and the student, right, the
Mm-hmm.
mentor and the mentee,
Yes.
needs to work, and I
Yes. And
think
that's the
that's
purity of the movie because
yeah.
compared to the book, this is a different story because the book is really about pedophilia.
hmm Yeah, and I think Mel was obviously wise
He shied away
to
from it. Well, he didn't
to
like
shy
it.
away. Yeah, no,
He
and
didn't
I
just
mean,
he just didn't like it. It's like,
and who
well,
can blame him? I mean, who can blame him? You
no,
cannot adapt something like that.
no.
And
Certainly
I mean,
not for American audiences. Certainly not as a family movie. Well, you would be having an interesting message here. It's and well, here we go. Here we enter into it. Okay, so in the last few years, we have been told to be more tolerant of child grooming. We have been told that people who have the affliction of being attracted to children is something we should bear with patience, and we should help children cope with, instead of vilifying the people who want sex from children. That's what we've been kind of spoon-fed in the last years through the media, through, well, a lot of Hollywood movies. It's a very weird thing that's going on. And it's very interesting that a guy like Mel makes a movie about this based on that book, and purposely cuts that out of the movie, and purposely makes this movie about how a teacher should relate to a child to teach him everything he needs to know about life, about gaining knowledge, about being able to think for yourself. None of this, let's go swimming together, like in the book. None of this stuff about the former students where there's really something going on when that accident happens that mars McLeod. That's the book is, in that sense, very different. And the movie is better because of it, because it becomes about good parenting. You see the mother trying. She's even explaining to her child, look, I didn't want it to be like this. I don't want our relation to be like this, but she's helpless to fix it. She's not able to relate to her child, only to the point where she stops throwing her dead husband under the bus. Like, hey, there was a point in our lives when we didn't hate your father, right? That kind of thing. And it's a very subtle thing. And it's very brutal to a child to have his father vilified, who he really has no clear memories of. So he enters into this kind of teacher substitute father relationship with McLeod. And of course, the town isn't having it, because the town knows, hey, this guy caused an accident, killed his student. There was obviously something going on. He went to jail. He doesn't talk to anybody. He never explains himself. He shies away from people. He looks like a freak. This is a small town. People aren't very bright. They draw the wrong conclusions.
Well, and real quick, I want to mention the makeup work on Mel. I mean, what's interesting about it is it's done. I mean, they could have totally messed up his entire face, but what's interesting about it is they just do, typical Hollywood fashion. It's really just one half of his face, and then the other half is completely handsome Mel, to where even his hair is still really well. You know what I mean? And I think again that was total Mel, to where he said, I still want people to tell it's me. You know what I mean? But having said that, I think the makeup work is still really well done, especially for 1994 standards. I recommend, if anybody, I think it's here in the States, the DVD that was put out has a wonderful behind the scenes, it's not a behind the scenes, but it's like a 20 years later retrospective in which Mel Gibson comes back to reflect on his making of the film. Same thing with Nick Stahl. And it's really funny because Nick Stahl, he's much more hard on himself, I think, than he needs to be. He's like, man, I wish I didn't play it this way. But you have Mel, he is just so extremely humble. Like, he's just like, look, it was my first movie. I didn't really know what I was doing again, I wasn't at Braveheart level yet. You know what I mean? I wasn't at Hacksaw Ridge level yet, but it was a fun little experiment of a movie. And I think
we all start somewhere.
Yeah. And I think that's what he keeps coming back to, is he says, look, it was just it was a fine little movie, and I look back upon it and I have nothing but great memories. And I think that's one of the best things you can say about this film, is it's not terrible. There really isn't anything wrong.
No, it's the little choo-choo that could.
Yeah, it really is just like I said earlier at the beginning of the conversation, it really is just a delightful little movie that I think captures not only does it capture the late 60s really well, but it really explores the whole timeless theme of coming of age.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as people, as humans, we all have those teachers that resonate with us. And I think that right there is a theme that that is really salient. We all have those teachers that for whatever reason we'll always remember that had an impact on us. And I
Yes.
think kudos to Mel for exploring both of those themes in
Yes,
in
an
just a
excellent
nice,
directorial choice.
yeah, in a
He really
nice,
saved the material with that choice.
yeah, yeah,
He
I think
elevated
so.
the material by that choice, and that's something I admire him for. It's kind of interesting. I looked into it, and he actually called Clint Eastwood, whom he admires, obviously for obvious reasons. Clint
Mhm.
Eastwood is arguably the greatest actor director who's ever lived. I mean, his Oscars and his body of work and the fact that he's still doing it prove it. Um, so at some point he calls Eastwood and asking him for advice. And what Eastwood says is something that I think is probably the one mistake in the movie, is that Eastwood said, look, whatever you do, give yourself enough time, give yourself enough takes. If you're going to act in it, don't shortchange yourself. And that's, I think, one of the reasons the movie feels a little out of sync here and there is because the scenes where Mel reacts are a little too overblocked, because it's like you can it's almost telegraphing. It's like when you get the marred face, the scene is going to go in a certain direction. And when you get Mel's handsome face, the scene is going to go in another direction, right? The marred face is living in the past and is always quoting great writers and is quoting classic literature. And Mel's face is the human side that only comes out when he tilts his head, right? And the scene is blocked differently. And those are all very much directorial choices. And I don't think he allowed himself enough time, and they didn't have enough stuff to edit. In a movie, because of the choice, because he's a Harvey Two-Face, really, that's actually in the movie. The child is reading a Batman comic book with Harvey Two-Face, explaining, well, really who McCloud is. He is two people. He's the person he is now, and he's the person before. And the person before is burned to a crisp. Yeah, that life is destroyed, and he's trying to make a new life, and it's not working. So, yeah, maybe there's no maybe here. He didn't get what Eastwood was trying to convey, and he should have listened to him. And that's something that Mel says, well, I really should have. And another thing he asked Eastwood was, okay, so how do I do this whole directing gig? And Eastwood said, don't worry about it. The way Eastwood would say it, just with a really soft voice, like, just don't worry about it. Eastwood said, look, most of the directing you're going to be doing will be subliminal, in the sense that you'll be conveying what you want to your actors, to your crew, but they will understand on a subliminal level, right? In the sense that you're not actually communicating it, but they will get it anyway, because that's your intent. And everybody on that set is basically interpreting what you want and trying to give it to you and trying to perform in a way that would please you. That's what a director is there to do. He's there to guide. Mm-hmm. And so Mel said, well, that was advice that was useless because I had no idea what that meant until after the project. And he realized, yeah, it is subliminal. Because when people come together who are talented and who are on the same wavelength, the sum becomes greater than its parts. And I think to an extent, that's what really worked in this movie. You had talented people working on it. They believed in the material. They had a good idea of what Mel wanted, and Mel's a good actor. And as it turns out, he's good at coaching, even coaching children to act. You see it in the making of stuff, where he's like explaining kids how they should react when they're in the boat and the panic they should feel. And he's acting it out. And you see those kids getting riled up. It's like, oh, yeah, right? They're getting excited about doing the scene. That's what a good director does. And you see it in a small increment here. You see the brave hearts and the Hacksaw Ridges we will ultimately get.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's like I said earlier, I mean, I think that was extremely wise of Mel for him to come into this and say, okay, yeah, I'm the director of this, fine, but I'm going to step back a bit, and if I'm starring in it, then I want something that is very, very character driven. Okay, but if you look at his directing films that followed, okay, you have Braveheart, you have Passion of the Christ, you have
Mm-hmm.
Apocalypto, you have the Hacksaw Ridge, and
Mm-hmm.
these are all really big set piece type films. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
these are films that have a lot going on, and
Yes.
so I think, as again, I think the one thing we keep coming back to is as a directorial debut, it's perfectly fine. I mean, it's funny. This is weird that I'm just thinking about this, but I watched. I want to say it was about a couple months back or so, but I watched Vincent D'Onofrio's directorial debut, which is
Okay.
a film. It's a Western. It's called The Kid, and
Okay. Is it any
and
good?
it was okay. It was
Mm-hmm.
okay. I mean, it was kind of like this. It was relatively harmless, and it was perfectly fine. But it's
Sure.
funny. I think when an actor decides, okay, I want to step behind the camera, and maybe I'm going to be stepping behind the camera, but I'm going to insert myself into the film as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think they always decide, well, if it's my first go out of the gate, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to scale things back a bit and really let the actors and the talking do most of the heavy lifting, which I think is
Mm-hmm.
extremely wise. And so if you look at a film like The Kid, I mean, it's basically just another telling of Billy the Kid, but it's again, you have a younger actor in there. Okay, you have Ethan Hawke doing his thing, but
Okay.
it's
It's with Ethan
it's
Hawke. Great.
very yeah, but it's very character and actor driven, and I think that's what Mel did. But I mean, man, again, as a directorial debut, I think he does a fantastic job. And like I said, you look at the films that followed. I mean, the guy has the, the guy has a style, and he has definitely an eye for what is a pretty shot. And the other thing too that you mentioned that I just want to mention real quick is, look,
Mm-hmm.
I know that Mel is not everyone's favorite in the media. Okay, he's not exactly the media's darling due to some of his behavior and actions.
Many directors fall from grace. Let's face facts.
Exactly, but you've never heard anybody speak poor about him behind the camera. You know what I
No,
mean? He
they all know
seems
he's
like
competent.
he's competent, and he's just an absolute consummate professional. And you look at the that retrospective on the DVD, and he seems. I mean, for me, I mean, he didn't seem like he was being a total asshat, um, directing these children and everything like that. I think I don't think he's an actor that and a director that people do not like working for. I think he seems relatively I don't know,
Benign. I think the
professional.
reality is that because it's his production company
Uh-huh.
and because he is a professional, he doesn't bring his insanity to the workplace.
Hmm.
Many crazy directors do.
Hmm.
There are multiple examples. But Mel is a professional, and people know him as a professional, no matter how they feel about, how his public persona is perceived. Because, of course, Hollywood in many ways is all about perception, right? And, there's no getting around to the stuff he did and the stuff he said. But
Hmm.
if a studio can get away with hiring him, they will hire him because they know how good he is. In many ways, like we talked about John Milius when we did the Conan, the Barbarian recording. And so recently I recorded Red Dawn with Ryan as a special episode. And we get into who John Milius was, how brilliant he is, and what a great director he is, and how he, coming out of the 60s, was slated to be the great director of the 70s, right? And he was on par with Spielberg, on par with Lucas, on par with Coppola, and many others. And what happened to him? Well, he was perceived as crazy, and he did something unforgivable. He made a movie about communists invading the United States. Well, we can't have that. We can't have this warmongering, right-wing, crazy person making a movie about what communism would be like in reality in this country, what an invasion would be like. We can't have that. No, we can't have this guy in Hollywood anymore. Blacklist him. Well, to a certain extent, whenever a director who has a strong vision about something and strong ideas steps out of line, and I truly believe that Mel Gibson already had strikes against him after Passion of the Christ, which was his personal passion project. It was immensely successful because everything Mel touches turns to gold. But not a lot of people who are, how shall I put this, policymakers, not just in Hollywood, but outside of it, appreciated his vision on Jesus Christ and on Christianity and on, Israelites, etc. And I think they were just waiting for him to make a mistake. Mm-hmm. And they just took him down, because every time Mel is now mentioned in the media, they bring up the same old bullet points. It doesn't matter if you apologize. It doesn't matter if you show contrition. It doesn't matter if you bring context and say, look, this is what I meant. Things got a little crazy. Things got a little out of hand. We're all human here. That's basically what his message was. It's like, look, I was just out of my mind. I was dealing with a lot of pressures, blah, blah, blah. Nobody forgives him. And they don't forgive him because those bullet points keep being reinforced. Yeah, so that means career over. And the fact that he was relatively self-reliant, self-sufficient, had a monster production company that could just get projects off the ground, get its own financing. He was a threat to certain people, and they took him down. Much as they did with John Milius. They took John Milius down, because we could have gotten some very interesting movies from John Milius after 1985, but we didn't, because he made Red Dawn. So I encourage everyone to listen to that episode, because we kind of get into it. And our episode with about Conan the Barbarian as well, because Sean's on it, and everything Sean's on turns to gold.
Oh, I don't know about that, but yeah, and what's interesting, I mean, I know that we've kind of danced around the film, and it seems like we're coming to the end, but the one thing I will say is I don't think we've seen the last of Mel. What's interesting is, he did Hacksaw Ridge, and that got him a ton of acclaim. I mean, I believe he was nominated for Best Director for that one. And it seemed like, okay, like, wow, he's back. And then he
was never going to get it because of the things he said, because they would never forgive him for it. But the fact that he was nominated is shocking enough.
Yeah, exactly. And so you saw that, and it's like, wow, like, okay, like, is he back? And then you thought that maybe he was going to get some more directing gigs, and then the pandemic happened, so that kind of stalled some things. But I think if anything, both this film and Hacksaw proved that he is a force behind the camera, and it's really unfortunate because, I mean, he is still working, but the roles that we see him doing are these just low budget, straight to streaming, films where he's
taking Bruce Willis's place.
Yeah, where he's sitting in a chair the whole time, and you watch it, and it's kind of like, man, like,
it's a gig for 3 days, and he takes. I mean, he takes the paycheck and goes home.
He does. I think he is an actor. I think he does deserve much better, because he can deliver. I know he did one with Mark Wahlberg that did get a theatrical release, but I don't think we've seen the last of him. I think he is going to direct a passion project again. I think he is going to direct something that really speaks to him, and when he does, I think it's going to be good. I really do. I
think that's inevitable.
Yeah. I don't think. Yeah. So anyway,
yes, so basically, this movie, A Man Without a Face, well acted, well shot, well scripted, small, but also successful in its own way, because you can't expect a movie like this to make a lot of money. I mean, there's nothing really. It's not a comedy. It's not an action movie, so you're not going to get that kind of money. But for a drama like this, of course, it didn't get any acclaim either, in sense that it wasn't nominated for anything. It did get some medium to decent reviews. A critique leveled on this movie is, well, because there were a lot of projects like this, and there were a lot of good scripts, and there were a lot of small movies that were really good. I can understand that kind of criticism would be leveled. But if you compare this movie to the slosh that is dumped on us through streaming, this is almost a masterpiece compared to the stuff we get now.
Yeah.
You don't get this kind of quality anymore.
No, this film, it's a study in good. in a lot of, and by that I mean, you have great acting here, you
Hmm.
have great direction, you have a great set pieces, you have a really good script. I mean, everything about this film all comes together with a really nice little bow, and that's what I'm going to keep coming back to on this film. I
Hmm.
think it's just a great. It's a great little movie. I mean, and that's the other thing too that's cool about it is, Mel, who had come off of, R-rated fare like Lethal Weapon and
Hmm.
whatnot, for him to come out and say, okay, I want to try this directing thing while I'm also acting, because that's the other thing we haven't really talked about. But it has to be really, really hard to not only be the lead in a movie, but
Hmm.
you're also handling the reins in directing as well. I mean, you're multitasking like you wouldn't believe.
Yes,
And
you
so
have to
for him,
worry about the catering.
oh, I mean, it's insane. So, I mean, he could have, I mean, you think about it, he could have done either a just another action type movie, okay, fine, or he could have done an ultimate vanity piece. Now, he did later on, he
Yes.
did with Braveheart and Passion of the Christ, but for this one, for his first time out,
Hmm.
for him to, I think, in a lot of ways, put his own ego aside and just tell a nice story about a teacher and a student,
Yeah.
okay, a coming of age. I think it's better than I think.
Yeah, and you as a teacher, you must relate to this in a very different way, because you must look at the maybe the nuts and bolts of the teaching process. So, and that's kind of interesting. So you showed this to students on movie day. So I'm wondering, is this because you were hungover, or was it a shall we say teaching tool?
A teaching tool. I mean, anytime I show a film in class, I always try to have something with it. Okay, whether it's discussion questions or whatever. And so for
Hmm.
this one, it's a really, I think it's a wonderful extension for To Kill a Mockingbird, because again, you have a young child in To Kill a Mockingbird who is coming of age.
Hmm.
Okay. And then in this movie, you have the same thing. And then again, you have Justin McLeod, who's the neighborhood recluse, similar to the Boo Radley character. And so what I
Hmm.
do is I like to do a compare contrast between the two, where we
Hmm.
look at the two characters, we look at both the children and the and To Kill a Mockingbird, Boo Radley isn't really a mentor, but he's still that figure that everybody is kind of whispering about, in the background and everything. And so yeah, and the students love this one, because the other thing too that I don't think we've mentioned is
Hmm.
this is a film that I think unfairly has gotten forgotten. I mean, you know what I mean? This is
Yes,
a
it got
film that
lost in the shuffle.
it got lost completely in the shuffle. Yeah, and we just we don't talk about it much
I
anymore.
I
And
think it doesn't help that Mel directed movies that have become absolute classics, right?
yeah, I
That's
guess it
when
did
a
get
debut
overshadowed.
film
Yeah.
kind of falls by the wayside, similar to George Lucas directing American Graffiti and right after directs Star Wars, one of the greatest movies of all time. I can't even find American Graffiti, even though it's like starring Harrison Ford and Jamie Lee Curtis and all these great actors. It's hard to find. Why is it hard to find? Nobody cares about American Graffiti. We all want to see Star Wars.
Yeah, yeah,
So there's that.
yeah. But I encourage anybody who, I mean, even if, I honestly think the other thing too that's cool about this movie is, even if you're not a fan of Mel Gibson, because I know that there are a lot of people out
Sure.
there who are, I don't want to give him the time of the day,
Hmm.
due to, certain, but I
He
honestly
hates
think,
Jews, so I must hate him. Some kind of thing. That kind of
but I
thing.
think even regardless of how you feel
Hmm.
about him in his personal life or whatever, but if you look at this as just a movie, I think this is it's just a wonderful, sweet little film that I think anybody can come in and enjoy. And I
True.
think that's what movie going should be, man. Right?
It should
So
be. It should
yeah.
be. It
So
isn't. You don't get
yeah.
like family friendly movies anymore. And arguably, you could say, well, Avatar 2 is a family friendly movie in the sense that it at least sort of portrays a normal nuclear family again, even though
I'm
they're
not taking
blue.
Yeah, and I'm not going to take my kids to a
It's
3.5
terrible.
hour movie. Sorry, I'm not doing it. I'm just not. This is a film that gets in and out in an hour and 42 minutes. You know what I mean? And
Yes,
it
we don't
does
need 4 hours
what
to
it
tell a basic story. And this is a
no.
very basic story. It has a great feel good ending because in the
It really
end,
does.
the kid is okay.
You know
Whether
what's
he
interesting?
survives Vietnam, we don't know, but that doesn't matter.
Well, it's not a traditional ending in a sense. You know, that's the other thing that's kind of cool about it is yes, it does have a happy ending, but it's a real bittersweet ending because I mean, spoiler alert, but Chuck and Justin McLeod don't see each other again. They don't
Never.
communicate with each other again. It's one of those things, and you almost, and this is one of the discussion questions that I pull out when I've shown it in the past is at the
Hmm.
very end, does Chuck really see Justin in the audience, or is that a figment of his imagination? Because you could go both ways with it.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
could argue
It
that
could be a
okay,
surreal ending.
yeah, you could argue that okay, maybe Justin did show up to see Chuck's graduation, and that is him in the audience waiting. Okay,
Hmm.
if that's the way you want to look at it, that is a sweet ending. But the
Hmm.
other way is, look, he moved away. He was given, I think, a restraining order. I think
Yes, it's
toward Chuck.
alluded
So
to. It's basically
yeah.
a deal. It's like, okay, we won't prosecute you, but you be
Mhm.
gone.
And so, I mean, if you look at it that way, it's kind of like, okay, well, then he'd be kind of breaking the law
Hmm.
if he did show up. So I like to look at it as, I think it's up for interpretation, but I almost like to look at the film, the ending as being a figment of Chuck's imagination, where to help him process it and move on, he
Well,
sees,
he basically
yeah,
it's a scene where he's making good, showing off to his teacher, right? It's like I made it, and it's McLeod is a big part of his success. So it's a kind of look what I did, Daddy.
hmm and the actor who they picked to play grown up Nick Stahl, wow.
Yeah,
Like where where did they find him? Because I mean, they look like they could be brothers. I
dead
mean, it's
ringers.
yeah. Oh man.
Yeah. So, and that scene works because of that. And it's kind of interesting because it sort of bookends how the movie starts because at the start of the movie he dreams about this success, right? Where he graduates, and it starts with the contentiousness in his family because he dreams of his sister being silenced,
hmm
right? It's a kind of a narcissistic dream where he's celebrated for his brilliance and his sister has to shut up and show appreciation because her face is plastered over. In the end, I mean, his sister and his family is at that graduation, and they the scene kind of shows that they've come to terms with each other, and he's kind of fallen in line, and he's found his place, and he has his peers, and he's more rounded now, and so the actual arrival of McLeod is more of a ghost from the past saying, "Hey, you did okay."
hmm Yeah.
And whether
No.
and right you are whether McLeod would actually have risked his parole or whatever measures were taken to stop him from contacting that child. Yeah, good question. You can talk about whether that little the drum beat chords that they had, basically saying, "Look, we're going to give you one shot here. It's like if you show contrition, if you just get lost, we won't worry about it anymore. But you can't be around this kid anymore. We can't have this."
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting. This village is kind of policing this situation, arguably for the better, because if you start to condone this kind of stuff, well, to what kind of things will it lead, right? So I mean, this is the Brady Bunch '60s. This is not hippie '60s, despite the mother and the lefty intellectual smoking pot around those children suggest. This is still a conservative town with conservative people who are just sort of like, well, a kid can learn stuff in school. He doesn't need a tutor, and he certainly doesn't need this kind of tutor, and certainly not with a guy with this kind of shady past. So it does make sense for that community to step in and say, "Hey, look, no, it's nah, no. You go do your little painting somewhere else and stay away from kids."
Yeah. Well, this was fun to go back
Right?
and and talk about. Thank you for the invite and yeah, let me talk for once about something that is non-action related. I really do, because normally anytime I'm guested on, we, I always seem to discuss the testosterone heavy
Yes, we talk
action,
murder
which
and
is fun.
mayhem.
But yeah, no, this was a ton of fun. So thank you for the invite.
Yes, well, it's a special episode. I mean, we're doing it for Patreon for a really small audience who is really just helping me keep the podcast on the air because stuff is expensive. So we really appreciate all the listeners for this particular episode because it is made especially for you. It's not going on the regular Last of the Action Hero channel because it's really not very action related, but it is mail related.
Yeah. Well, no.
So thanks so much for coming on, Sean, and sharing your insights with us. So thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.